One of the stories last month that I was reading, it was really strange. Someone had a dog, and the dog was loose, I guess, and it was running in the streets, and they confiscated the dog. And they called him or sent him a letter saying that we have your dog. If you want to come and pick it up, you have to pay $60 fine. This guy basically he accepted everything for value. I mean, anything that he has in his household, including the TV, the forks, the knives, everything. He just named them, including the dog. So he goes over there and he says, I'd like to get my dog, and they tell him that, well, you're going to have to pay $60 fine. He says, I don't have the money, but I do have a piece of paper, his UCC1. Now, believe it or not, they read the paper and they says, well, it sounds like either we're going to have to return the dog or we're going to have to pay $1 million check to you. So we'd rather give you the dog. He put a $1 million security interest on the dog. So if you want to get the dog, you have to pay the first creditor first in line, which is him. So that was really neat. Another, I'm going to say this one too because it's really, it's nice to hear. Another doctor, which I think he was involved in labs, and he works with a lot of doctors. He does blood tests. He just called our office and he says that basically all his creditors, they're forcing him to file bankruptcy. And he wanted to do the UCC process. It was a rush job, so we did it for him. And at the same time, they pushed him to Chapter 11, which is renegotiation. And I guess they didn't accept the terms, so they pushed him to Chapter 7 since he had a lot of assets and they wanted to sell all his properties to get the money. He submitted to the bankruptcy court his UCC1. Now, 1 week later, I was not in the office. My secretary tells me that so-and-so called and he was really, he wasn't normal. I says, why, what's wrong? He says that, is this a gimmick, the UCC1? I says, I don't understand what you're talking about. Well, you better talk with this guy. So I called him. I says, what do you mean it's a gimmick? He says, well, the court sent me, after liquidating all my assets, they sent me one check to me, not the creditors. And he says, I don't understand. What is this? Well, I said, obviously, you're the first in line. You're the only person who filed the claim with the Secretary of the State. And you put $100 million against your name. So anything comes out of your name, the first creditor gets paid first. So you're the first before anybody else. So you got the check. So he cashed it. That's good. So the reason why I'm telling you these stories because these are stories that they're unusual. We've got tons of them, but these are unusual stories. Now, in order to explain a little bit more about the UCC, it takes really a lot of time to explain. We do have a book. It's over 430 pages. It explains in details step by step. However, I would like to talk about the way that the natural law is set up, what is the law, and what is the statute, which is very important for you to know. Now, the whole thing is so simple that sometimes we miss it. We know that God created man. So obviously, in our term, we cannot have a claim against our Creator, which is God. Men created a constitution, which is a contract. They made sure that that contract would not backfire to them. So basically they made sure that the Constitution will create a government giving them a limited power to serve them, the people. So obviously the way that it was set up, the government cannot go on top of the people. And government created corporations. Now today it's really strange. This is the natural law, and somehow we look to ourselves and we say that, well, the government is above us. What happened? It's impossible. Well, it's very simple. This was planned a long time ago. This is not something that happened just now. It goes back to 1862. However, it was so cleverly done that all these licenses that people they need it because they're U.S. citizens. They don't need it because they're American citizens. Before the 14th Amendment, no one needed any license to do anything. We started getting licenses. What is a license? It's a permission from someone to do something. Otherwise, it's illegal. Well, to get married, you need a license, I guess, marriage certificate. What's illegal about marriage that you need a permission, otherwise it's illegal? It doesn't make sense. Driver's license. It's illegal to drive on public roads unless you have a permission. It doesn't make sense. And all the licenses, it doesn't make sense. However, you need to have a license as a U.S. person. The whole thing started in 1862. Before coming that, I'm going to just tell you the definition of the law. I'm going to have to read it because it's so difficult. I want you to know about it. Do not injure any humans, person, property, or rights. That's all you have to know about natural law. If you know this one sentence, you're not going to be doing anything against the law, natural law. However, the judge tells you today that ignorance of the law is no excuse. What he's talking about? No, we understand this sentence, but what he's talking about? The last time that I checked with the Library of Congress, there are over 3 million law books with over 60 million statutes. When the judge tells you that ignorance of the law is no excuse, 80 million statutes, 60 million statutes, I'm supposed to know not to violate one of them? It doesn't make sense. However, the law is very precise, very clear. Not for U.S. citizens though. That's for American citizens. As a U.S. citizens, you are under all these statutes. Everything applies to you. All the rules, regulations, licenses, everything. So how we got in this mess to start with?